Welcome everyone to this week's content. As I mentioned before, from now on, I'm going to create weekly content for my podcast as well as videos to share with you some of the things I think about, write about, some insights and inspiration or practical tips. And sometimes it's not just for me. I may interview people, and sometimes I may get resources that I think is useful and I may share with you here. But this week, what I really want to talk about is about women in transition. More and more I notice that many of us are in transition. And in fact, for women, you go through transition, likely or not, many times in your life, from a girl to become a woman, or maybe when you get married or find your first serious relationship, or becoming a mother, or starting a career, changing a career, moving, relocating, retiring. Many of these things happen whether we choose it or not. It happens and it triggers a transition, and you will be moving into something from a comfort zone, something that you know, to a bit of unknown. You're not sure, but you know you have to move forward. Transition, the good thing is it's a temporary. We all will move through it. But it triggers a lot of self-reflection, and sometimes it's not very easy. And I think I see it more and more now, perhaps because I have become a mother, and that was a big transition for me. And you can read all the books and listen to everybody, but no one can prepare you than really actually going through it yourself. And obviously there was transition when I was moving from my hometown Hong Kong to Europe, and Australia. So, and I think for every grown woman, you go through many different transitions, whether it's triggered biologically or emotionally, or things happen at work. But what I really want to talk about being in transition is that we are basically embarking on some may call hero journey, soul adventure, but something you don't know. Like, as in one way or the other, you've been pushed to it, or you choose to do it. Sometimes you decided to quit the job and find one that really means something for you, or you have different aspiration. So sometimes you choose it. So many times that you just being thrown into it. And when we're in this kind of transition, sometimes it can be quite scary because, first of all, we don't know where this is going to lead to, because from known to unknown, it's a soul adventure. But every adventure that I've taken, every transition I've gone through, I really think it's really helping for our soul to grow, for us to mature, and, doing something that we're not familiar with, pushing ourselves into something that perhaps that we're not naturally used to. Like, even for me to write my first book, I had to, obviously you have self-doubts about whether it's any good, whether you're good enough to do it, when it's something that had been sort of brewing for many years. Something trigger and I jump into it. But obviously throughout this time, there was also many doubts. And I'm sure many people, before they get into any serious big adventure, there was a time that you are not sure whether you can get through with it. So, and it's not easy. And obviously when you have a strong support network, that's going to be helpful. But I think a few things I have learned from going through transitions, whether biological one, being a mother, giving birth, pregnancy and all that, or changing where I live, relocating many times in my life, or changing career, many of these things. What I found, I have gone through a lot of them, and I have witnessed people around me, and I learned from different teachers and coaches that they have gone through. So I thought, if you are in one, or you're about to get into one, in which most of us are in, I thought it would be useful to share a few things that I think will be helpful during this time. Number one, when you're in the dark, or when you're in somewhere that you think I'm reaching my bottom, or I don't know how long this is going to take. When you're feeling like that, some people call it the dark night of the soul. The only way to get out of darkness is to look for the light. And I really believe that, for every breakthrough, you really will have to be really honest and reflecting why you're doing what you're doing, and to be really have put in more faith into yourself that, that's the reason why I'm going through this, and that will be something in a way rewarding, and for us at the end of the day. I think you need to find ways to stop the doubts, but find more faith into it. So sometimes it's hard to show up in the days that we really think it's difficult, when we don't know how long this transition is going to be, and sometimes it's not a necessary adventure that we jump into is thrown at us. But a few things that I find is useful during those dark night of the soul is that, number one, you need to lean in. Lean in meaning that, sometimes we cannot handle it all. So sometimes people who have a strong spiritual practice or faith, that is very useful to lean in your faith. And sometimes you think you don't have it anymore because you're going through a really hard time. So what I find is that then you lean on someone that have faith in that sense. So I guess in other words, it's about finding people that are there for you and lean in when you need to. You don't have to do it all alone. But someone else around you will always at the time like that will have a bit more faith on you than you do. So, I mean, when I think I don't know whether I can finish some challenging project at hand, I will always talk to people who know me better than myself sometimes on those things, that to tell me that, you can go through it, but you just have to take one step at a time, or be more patient, or things that point out that, look, you have done this and that before, why you think you can't do this? So sometimes just lean into people who may just a bit more faith and hope than you are at this point. And sometimes that's really useful, because when we're in those down days, that we can just think from a corner, we can't get out of it. So I think lean into someone, pick your team of support. It's very important. And another thing, it's about cultivate calmness and stillness, because I think that when I have those days, I think one of the things I noticed would be maybe I didn't do my meditation. Maybe I haven't gone to do my exercises, like physical exercises, because these are the two major things that really help me to be calm and still, so that my mind is not racing a million miles and yet I'm actually going nowhere. And that happens a lot when you're overwhelmed or burnt out and you're not sure whether what you're doing is right. You're just probably thinking too much, or that's just a challenging time. So what I find very helpful in those days is that you cultivate a sense of calmness, which for me is either meditation or exercise. So one of those things will help. And for me, it is. So for you, find those things that will help you to cultivate that calmness and stillness. And for me, yoga is a really great exercise to do that, and many people seem to benefit from it. So try that. If not yoga, maybe for some people it's walking in the park or go to the beach, but something to calm it, because sometimes when we think we're doing nothing, like let's say you're very busy, you're running behind schedule, you're very overwhelmed, very stressed, and actually the most productive thing at that time is to cultivate that stillness by doing nothing. But it's really hard because you think you are so behind, so you want to do more, but you may not be most productive, you may not create your best work. So at that time, the best is actually stop doing those things, but find a way to calm your nerves. And some people are just maybe listen to music, or maybe play with your baby, or look at a sunset, whatever that is. That is not counterproductive. Sometimes we think being productive is just sitting at a desk and just keep typing and working, and sometimes it's not. When you're productive, when you're at your peak performance state, you can pump out so many things in no time. But when you're not in that spot, you find it very hard to do anything at all. I personally have done it many times, that sometimes we are our own worst enemy, because we think we just need to just push through it, but sometimes it's not the case. So I really recommend yoga, dancing, going to the nature. Meditation is definitely one of my strongest recommendations. So find that way to help you. And the third is to connect with other people, because I think a lot of times that we're so addicted to sometimes people are so addicted to check the Facebook and the social media, and I think a lot of times is that we really long for that connection with people. And nowadays it's not so easy, because maybe people are living all over the world, and people may be working from home, and sometimes what we do, we can be quite silo focused, so we feel out of touch with people. And I think one of the most important thing is feel connected with people. And the first point that I bring in is about leaning in other people's faith. if you have someone that you can trust and talk to, just having a phone call, having an in-person meetup would be so beneficial. And I think sometimes we just start to forget how important it is for us to connect with other like-minded people, authentic people, and form relationships. And relationships don't form overnight. It's through time, but we need to put in the time to it. And because now people want to do so much in such a short time, it seems like even socializing with people, it is a task that would just take up so much energy and time, but it's actually so important for us to actually spend time to get to know other people and building authentic relationship like in the old days. Because nowadays we're so digital, we're so transactional. Everything you create a project online or any campaign or something, you always ask yourself, what is the agenda? What does I want to achieve? What I want to get out of it? What are you going to get out of it? There's so much that going on. So how are you really going to connect with someone authentically? Sometimes you have to let go of these things that, if you say meet someone in a social party or gathering that you really felt, you have a great connection, explore the conversation, trying to make a friend, instead of thinking, how am I going to, what am I going to get out of it? This kind of thinking, it's going to really harm us into forming authentic relationship. Because sometimes our best friend, you realize that we met them at high school, uni, or like ages ago. It's because those are the days we don't have so much agenda. And people go to networking. Some people seem to be so good at it, and some people very uncomfortable with it. It's because that agenda thing. I don't know where it's comparable. Like even for me, when I was younger, I mean, when you go on a date, that felt like an agenda. So I was always a very good example. I always think hanging out, getting to know each other is so much better than titling it a date, because in a date is an agenda to see whether there's possibility of hooking up or becoming in a relationship. For me, there was a lot of pressure. Like, I think maybe that's me. But I use an example as in when you go to social networking, trying to be really open-hearted to think, get to know people. If you find someone interesting, you feel, oh, this seems like a really interesting person to talk to, be open-minded about it. Stop thinking about what am I going to get out of it all the time, because that's really, people can sense it. And how are you going to make friends for real? So sometimes we have to let go of that. And maybe I make it sound like all the business networking is like this, but I witness it a lot like this, that these days really things are so transactional. People don't take the time, and sometimes time is all we need. And I think that helps in the times of transition to take a step back, take a pause, because especially when, let's say, I can totally imagine you're starting a business, you change your career, so you dive into a creative industry, you want to be indie author, so you want to do everything right, and you need to make income. So there's a lot of stress, there are a lot of things to ask of you. But sometimes, you need to go into business networking. You need to go out there and make things happen and do things. There's some truth in it. But apart from that, you also need to take a step back and think, I can't always push and push and push to make things happen. That's a very masculine energy. The feminine energy is more on the receiving it. Yes, you do your thing. You do use your left brain, your analytical side of things to book your airplane tickets, to organize trips. I mean, it's not that we are just using intuition and the feminine energy receiving it and not doing any active doing. You do the doing. But to push and to make things happen all the time is not going to work. And sometimes the receiving it is that, I take one step, I come to this place, but then I'm going to open my heart and my mind to see who's going to be interesting that I'm going to meet tonight, rather than really just to focus on the outcomes all the time. I think setting goals has values into it, but sometimes we cannot be so hang up on all these things. And especially when we're in transition, that's the time that maybe we are super sensitive about, are we making progress? How when I'm going to, achieve what I want to achieve, when I'm going to get past this. So maybe that's also something to do with it. But I think just to have real people interaction with open-minded people, like-minded people, having authentic relationship is going to help in so many ways. For us to become human, like to feel human again, to connect with one another, is something we're still missing these days because of technology help us to work so well online, and at our home, but sometimes that we also need to see people face to face. So that's something that I really miss sometimes with work. So yeah, so that's a few ways that I think that may help, and that's definitely the things that it helps me. So going forward, I hope to share more things that I found useful to share. I'm always trying to work on materials that I think is relevant, useful, and fun. So I hope today seems to be a little bit like hot, like on a subject it's perhaps more serious, but I definitely think that there are many of us in transition, and we need to cherish this time to self-reflect, but then there are always ways to help us, to lift us up, to go through it, move through it. And obviously in my book, I also talk a lot about transition, and I hope that will be a little taster for you. But we all go through it, and having people around us, having conversation forum like what I do on Facebook Live, I hope that is something for people to think about and also being useful for you. So, well, until next time. So, hope to talk to you again. See you.